Hello everyone, welcome again to my channel CMS Academy. Today we are going to study about the irrational numbers. As we have studied the irrational number in our previous classes, that is in the 9th section, how are irrational numbers and how these irrational numbers are present on number line and what are these irrational numbers. In 9th we study about that what are the terminating numbers, terminating rational numbers or terminating irrational numbers. Means when the number terminates after some digit of decimal, they are known as terminating numbers and they are the rational numbers. But if the number is not terminated after some digits or they are non-terminating, non-repeating, they are the irrational numbers. हमने irrational और rational numbers के बारे में 9th क्लास में पढ़ा है और where we study that real numbers are the combinations of rational number and irrational numbers. Today we are going to prove that why the numbers are irrational number. For example, root 2, root 3, root 5, they are irrational number. As we have studied in class 9 that the value of root 2 is 1.41 and so on. Root 3, 1.732. These numbers are non-terminating, non-repeating. सो हमें ये पता चलता है कि यदि अंडर रूट में प्राइम नंबर है तो वो नॉन टर्मिनेटिंग नॉन रिपीटिंग होते हैं. इट मीन्स अकॉर्डिंग टू आवर नेक्स्ट थ्योरम वी आर गोइंग टू प्रूव दैट इफ देयर इज एन प्राइम नंबर अंडर रूट प्राइम नंबर है अंडर रूट 2, 3, 5, 7 एंड सो ऑन, तो वो इरेशनल नंबर्स होंगे बिकॉज when we calculate the value of under root 2, 3, 5 and so on, they are non-repeating, non-terminating, and that is the definition of irrational number. Irrational numbers are those numbers which are non-terminating, non-repeating. Today we are going to discuss about the theorem let p be a prime number if p divides a square then p divides a, where a is a positive integer. Today we are going to discuss whether root 2 is an irrational number. So the example is prove that root 2 is an irrational number. इसको हम प्रूव करेंगे कि irrational number है या rational number है. On the contrary, we assume that root 2 is a rational number. Root 2 is a rational number. When root 2 is a rational number, so it is in the form of a by b, p by q. Instead of p by q, I am writing a by b, where a and b are co-prime numbers. The next step is squaring both the sides. So under root 2 whole square is equals to a upon b square. So squaring as we know that this will written like that root 2 into root 2. Root 2 become 2, or we can say the root is cancelled by square. So this become 2 is equals to a square b square. When we cross multiply this, it become 2b square equals to a square. So the next step is 2 equals to a square. Why it is so? Because 2 upon 2b square and 2b square is equals to a square. This can be written as 2 equals to a because of our theorem 1.2. उसमें क्या कहा गया है कि यदि कोई नंबर a स्क्वायर से डिविजिबल है तो वो a से भी डिविजिबल होगा. इसका मैं आपको एग्जांपल लेके बताती हूँ. यदि ये 3 है और हमने 6 का स्क्वायर लिया तो 6 का स्क्वायर हुआ 36 से 3 डिविजिबल होगा और 6 से भी 3 डिविजिबल होगा. मतलब कि यदि स्क्वायर है वो डिविजिबल हो रहा है किसी नंबर से तो उसका जो ओरिजिनल नंबर है वो भी डिविजिबल होगा नंबर से. What I have proved that 2 is divisible by a square or 2 is divisible by a. Now what's the next step is When we take a is equals to 2c, c is another integer. When we take a as 2c, so according to our theorem a equals to 2b square, तो ये हो जाएगा a square equals to 4c square. Now instead of a we are going to write 2b square. 2b square equals to 4c square. As 2 is cancelled by 4, it becomes b square equals to 2c square. Another step is 2 upon b square, where we study about any another number c. 2b square और it will become 2b. जो मैं आपको बता रही हूँ कि यदि कोई नंबर स्क्वायर से डिविजिबल है तो वो नंबर ओरिजिनल नंबर से भी डिविजिबल होगा. So by this we know that a and b, हमने दो इंटीजर्स लेके चले, a and b are co-prime numbers but they don't have any other factor or any other same number. a and b has no common factor other than 1. हमारे a और b दोनों को प्राइम नंबर तो हमने प्रूव कर दिया, लेकिन उनके पास कोई अदर नंबर नहीं है, सेम फैक्टर नहीं है, खाली 1 के अलावा. तो ये को प्राइम नंबर्स हुए. और एज वी अर्लियर प्रूव दैट प्राइम नंबर्स आर इरेशनल नंबर्स. So the contradict we prove that root 2 is a irrational number. It means any prime number comes under root, they are irrational numbers. So we prove that root 2 is an irrational number. So from 1 and 2 equation we obtain that 2 is common factor between a and b, but we take a and b as the co-prime numbers. So on the contradictory, that co-prime numbers are not having any common number except 1. So what we have to say, we have to prove that any prime number, say for example root 2 is an irrational number. We know that sum and difference of any rational number and irrational number are irrational numbers, and if the number, इसको हम कैसे समझ सकते हैं कि यदि हमारा √2, 3, 5, 7 प्राइम नंबर्स हैं तो वो इरेशनल नंबर होते हैं, और उनको यदि हम किसी भी होल नंबर या रैशनल नंबर से प्लस माइनस करेंगे सो वो भी हमारे इरेशनल नंबर्स ही आएंगे. सो इन आवर नेक्स्ट एक्सरसाइज you have to show that whether these are the rational number or irrational numbers. If they are with under root prime numbers तो वो सारे हमारे irrational numbers होंगे. And product and quotient of a non-zero numbers are also irrational numbers. And the product and quotient of rational and irrational number are also irrational numbers. The next example is prove that root 3 is an irrational number. Similarly, what we have done in the previous example, वही करेंगे. Suppose that or assume that root 3, I am going to solve this directly. Root 3, we assume that or we suppose that root 3 is a rational number. Root 3 rational number हुआ तो that is in the form of a and b. What's the first step? Squaring both the sides. Root 3 whole square equals to a by b whole square. So it becomes 3 equals to a square upon b square, or 3b square equals to a square, because 3 upon 3b square. कि 3 और 3b स्क्वायर सेम है तो हम इसकी जगह 3 इक्वल्स टू ए स्क्वायर लिखेंगे. इट मीन्स 3 इज़ डिविजिबल बाय ए स्क्वायर, और दैट कैन बी रिटर्न एज 3 इज़ डिविजिबल बाय ए. जो मैंने आपको बताया यदि 3 ए स्क्वायर से डिविजिबल है तो 3 ए से भी डिविजिबल होगा. एज इन आवर प्रीवियस एग्जाम्पल वी टेक अनदर इंटीजर, सो इसमें भी हम लेंगे ए इक्वल्स टू 3c. सो इट बिकम a square equals to 3 become 9c square, because here we prove that a square equals to 3b square. अभी मैंने आपको बताया कि a स्क्वायर 3b स्क्वायर है, सो 3b स्क्वायर इक्वल्स टू 9c स्क्वायर. That will cancel, so it becomes b square equals to 3c square. So 3 equals to b square because 3 or 3c square equals to b square. Then it will written like that, 3 is divisible by b also. So according to 1 and 2, we obtain that 3 is common factor between a and b. But on the contradict, we know that a and b are the co-prime numbers and they don't have any factors except 1. So root 3 is a irrational number. Our next example is show that 5 minus root 3 is an irrational number. Again, what we have to do, that we assume, on the contrary, we suppose that it is a rational number. So what we assume that a and b, what we are going to take, a and b are the co-prime numbers where b is not equals to 0. तो हम इसमें ऐसे लिखेंगे 5 minus root 3 is equals to a upon b. When we multiply this, what it becomes, the next step is a b को हम राइट से लेफ्ट में ले आएंगे तो ये हो जाएगा 5 माइनस a अपॉन b, और हमारा रूट 3 है, रूट 3 माइनस की वैल्यू है, जब इसको लेफ्ट से राइट में लेके जाएंगे इट बिकम 3. सो व्हाट वी आर नेक्स्ट स्टेप, टेक द एलसीएम ऑफ दिस बाय पुटिंग 1 here b, so it become, when b is divided by 1 we get b multiplied by 5b minus a, because b is divided by b become 1 multiplied by a is equals to a. This become like this. By this we prove that root 3 की जो वैल्यू आई वो रैशनल नंबर के फॉर्म में आई, तो रूट थ्री इज अ रैशनल नंबर. इसके थ्रू हमारा क्या हो गया, रूट 3 इज अ रैशनल नंबर. But on the contradictory, we know that 3 is a prime number, under root 3 is an irrational number. So the number 5 minus root 3 is irrational. It means our assumption that root 3 is a rational number is wrong, because it is a prime number, and if root 3 the prime number is under root, so they are irrational numbers. Next example is show that 3 root 2 is a irrational number. Again, what we have to do, let us assume on the contrary that 3 root 2 is a rational number, and where a and b, the rational numbers, are co-prime numbers. A and b are co-prime. So according to this, 3 root 2 is equals to a upon b. As we assume that 3 root 2 is a rational number, so we write that 3 root 2 equals to a upon b, and root 2 is equals to a upon 3b. As according to this, root 2 is a rational number because a upon 3b is a rational number. ये rational number है तो हम root 2 की वैल्यू बोल सकते हैं कि ये rational number है. But on the contradictory, we know that co-prime numbers, they don't have the other common factor except a. एक के अलावा उनके और कोई common factor नहीं होता है, तो ये हमारे co-prime numbers irrational numbers होते हैं. Prime numbers हमारे irrational numbers होते हैं. So what's our solution is 3 root 2 is an irrational number because root 2 is a prime number and they are irrational numbers. Question number 2 of exercise 1.3 is prove that 2 root 5 is an irrational number. So on the contrary, what we assume that 3 plus 2 root 5 is a rational number. And our rational numbers A and B are the co-prime numbers. So according to this, how we are going to write? हम आप लिखेंगे 3 plus root 2 5 is equals to A by phi. मतलब हम ये assume कर रहे हैं कि ये rational numbers हैं. So next step is 2 root 5 is equals to A upon B minus 3. 2 root 5 is equals to B को हमने LCM लिया, B को B से डिवाइड किया 1 आया, 1 को A से मल्टीप्लाई किया A, B को 1 से डिवाइड किया B आया, B को 3 से मल्टीप्लाई किया 3B. फिर हम रूट 5 इधर रखेंगे लेफ्ट हैंड साइड में, राइट हैंड साइड में 2 यहाँ पे मल्टीप्लाई में है तो डिवाइड में आ जाएगा A माइनस 3B अपॉन 2B. इट मीन्स अकॉर्डिंग टू आवर अजम्पशन जो हमने एज्यूम किया तो रूट 5 एक रैशनल नंबर है, ये हमने इसके अकॉर्डिंग ऑब्टेन किया है. बट वी नो दैट रूट 5 इज़ एन इरेशनल नंबर क्योंकि ये प्राइम नंबर है. सो द वैल्यू ऑफ रूट 5 इज़ नॉन रिपीटिंग, नॉन टर्मिनेटिंग. दैट्स वाई on the contradictory the number 3 plus 2 root 5 is also an irrational number. So on the contradictory 3 plus 2 root 5 is an irrational number. Is an irrational number. The third question is prove that the following are irrational. First question is 1 upon root 2. So our first step is we assume that this is a rational number. तो हम क्या लिखेंगे? root 2 assume that 1 by root 2 is a rational number and they are in the form of A by B where A of हम वही करेंगे, assume करेंगे कि this is a rational number. So assume this is a rational number whereas A and B are co-prime. So how we are going to write 1 upon root 2 is equals to A upon B. When we cross multiply, what it becomes? B is equals to root 2A और b अपॉन a इज इक्वल्स टू रूट 2. मीन्स रूट 2 हमारा एक रैशनल नंबर के फॉर्म में आ रहा है. बट ऑन द कॉन्ट्रडिक्टरी वी नो दैट रूट 2 इज़ नॉट अ रैशनल नंबर, इट इज़ अ इरेशनल नंबर. रूट 2 इज़ एन irrational number. So according to this 1 upon root 2 is also an irrational number. Second part of question 3 is prove that 7 root 5 is a rational number. Again assume that 7 root 5 is an rational number and A and B are co-prime numbers. So 7 root 5 is equals to A upon B. Root 5 is equals to A upon 7B. As we know according to this जब हमने सॉल्व करके देखा तो रूट 5 की वैल्यू A upon 7B आ रही है जो कि एक रैशनल नंबर है. बट ऑन द कॉन्ट्रडिक्टरी वी नो दैट रूट 5 इज़ नॉट अ रैशनल नंबर. सो द नंबर 7 root 5 is an irrational number. So according to this, our assumption is wrong that 7 root 5 is a rational number. And the third part of the question is prove that 6 plus root 2 is a irrational number. तो उसको प्रूव करने के लिए हम on the contrary we assume that 6 plus root 2 is a rational number. So again what we have to do, we are going to write in the form of a rational number. So a and b, we take the two integers a and b, they are co-prime number and their HCF is 1. अब हम इसको रैशनल नंबर के फॉर्म में लिखेंगे 6 प्लस रूट 2 इज इक्वल्स टू a अपॉन b, देन रूट 2 इक्वल्स टू a अपॉन b माइनस 6, रूट 2 इज इक्वल्स टू b, और ये हो जाएगा हमारा, बार बार मैं सॉल्व करके बता रही हूँ, व्हेन b इज डिवाइडेड बाय b 1 वी गेट, और 1 मल्टीप्लाई करेंगे a से तो a, b डिवाइडेड बाय 1 वी गेट b मल्टीप्लाई बाय 6, तो दिस बिकम 6b. तो इसके अकॉर्डिंग हमें पता चला रूट 2 एक रैशनल नंबर है. बट एज वी नो दैट आर इंटीजर्स ए एंड बी आर को प्राइम, तो को प्राइम के हमारे और कोई फैक्टर्स नहीं हो सकते एक्सेप्ट 1. सो वी नो दैट रूट 2 is not a rational number, it is an irrational number. So the whole number 6 plus root 2 is an irrational number. So the assumption that 6 plus root 2 is a rational number is wrong. So here we complete our exercise 1.3. If there is any doubt, write me on a comment section. We will meet in our next video.